Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. If you're just Immigration Times with yours truly, Michelle Fanger, and as always, I'm here to provide the latest in regards to immigration. So if you're just logging on, bring your questions, bring your immigration questions, anything you might have in regards to immigration. I mostly focus on migration to the United States. I provide answers. If I'm aware, I do provide those answers to those who might have them in regards to any immigration issues that they might have. As always, if you don't want to ask your question on the program, you can definitely send me an email. If you're going to send an email, put the headline Jamaican.com so that I could see the question. Okay. So thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining. So what am I going to talk about today? There are several things I want to touch on today that are impactful in our community. One of the major things I want to point out, which I know everybody is aware, but I see consistently, where people are not aware that at this point in the past, usually when you come to the border, the US, they usually give you a document, which was usually an I-94, a white piece of paper, if you remember. And they usually have on it a stamp of the amount of time you could stay within the United States, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, or 6 months. A lot of people, usually look at that document to monitor how long they're able to stay. If you're given a week, you're required to leave after that week. If you need more time, you'll have to file an extension for additional time to stay here, because you don't want to overstay. If you overstay, it may bar you from ever coming back to the United States, and you don't want to forego that opportunity. But currently, it's surprising, a lot of people are not aware that they do not hand you that document anymore when you come to the border. If you have traveled recently, they no longer hand you that document. What they do, they tell you have to go online to get that information. It's at the cbp.com website, Customs and Border and Patrol website. You'll have to go on that website, put in your name, your passport, the last passport that you traveled on, and what they'll do is they'll pull up your information based on that, and that document online will tell you how long you have in the United States. Some people might say, oh, the officer didn't say anything to me, I'm good. Oftentimes, no, they don't say anything to you when you come into the border. They just ask, how long are you here? If they suspect anything, they'll send you for a secondary interview, but usually they don't say anything. So just be aware that you have to check it. And a lot of people might say, I know, but a lot of people don't know, because I've had that issue a lot of time where I have asked clients, like, where's the I-94? And they're like, I didn't get any, or I can stay here a longer time. So be aware of that when you're coming in. And I always want to stress, which I think I try to stress it every week, that be mindful of the category you come on. I say this because I always have people contact me in regards to getting issues when they come to the border, where they're turned back because they're coming here to visit on a visitor's visa, and for some reason, immigration might think you're coming here to work. Oftentimes, they look at your messages that you have in your phone, correspondence between you and friends or potential employer, where you're telling, oh, I'm coming to work for you for whatever X amount a week. And they look at that document in your email, and then based on that, they'll say, all right, you're coming here to work. You don't have a work visa. You're coming to visit. So what? We'll send you back on and explain and deport you. And then you lose all opportunities to come back to the United States if you don't want to come back in the future. So be mindful of how you travel. If you intend to work, definitely go ahead. If at the time you're coming to the United States, your intention is to work, make sure you get the required document, visa, when you come to the border, if you intend to work at the time. As I said before, if at the time you're coming to vacation and have no intention of working, but later on you decide to work, then you could definitely change your status from a visitor to a work or to a student visa, right? If you decide to come here to attend school. All right, so I hope that was helpful for those traveling, or for those who might have people have had issues coming to the border where they're returned back home. Oftentimes, it's usually something, some violation of the immigration law. And sometimes people might violate the laws and take a break for a period of time. Like, for instance, like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, they overstayed a day or two, and they think, oh, I'll just give it a break and travel back another 5 years. just remember that all that information is stored. So once they see it, it will give a ding and they will know that they'll see your information in the system, and that could be a problem. All right. Another thing that people have spoken to me about are for those who are going through the migration process where they also have the country. The application process for some categories are moving quickly, but some areas are still having delays, especially for those applications that were submitted before COVID. They're still sorting through those. So you will have delays. So it's not that there's something wrong with the application, it's just that it's pending. So just want you, if they usually have questions before they deny your application, what they'll do is they send a letter asking for additional information to make a decision, or this not is like, we intend to deny your application, but if you provide information, we're able to resolve it. But you have to look at the deadline that they provide in that document, and then what you do is that you provide the information that is needed. All right. And if you get a RFE, it doesn't mean it's going to be denied. Request for additional information. It doesn't mean that your case is going to be denied. It just means that you haven't supplied sufficient evidence for immigration to make a decision on your case. All right. So you need to provide the information. As I said, you have to provide them before the deadline. All right. So that be careful of that when you're going through the process. So if you haven't heard about your case, it's delayed. If they haven't corresponded with you, it means that there's nothing. Also, while your case is pending, make sure you update immigration with all new addresses, because what they'll do is they'll send your correspondence to your old address. So always make sure once you move within a few days, you update immigration on your new address so that they have an address for you. What I do for my clients, I usually stay on file for their cases. So I usually get correspondence regardless of where they move, because sometimes people move and they just don't have the time or remember to update immigration. But you have to. And if you have a green card also, you'll have to update USCIS once you relocate. You're required to update immigration on all new addresses. The only time you don't have to update immigration is when you become a US citizen. Okay, so be mindful of that and be aware of that. Keep USCIS updated with address so you get all your notifications, all emails, all messages. And you have the online option where you're able to go online and set up an online account. The online account is very convenient because anything that is done immediately on your case is updated on the website, and you don't have to wait in the mail to get that information. So if you have an opportunity and you have a case pending, definitely try to set up an account. What other major thing is happening? It's very important that, we're going into an election year. So if you think that you qualify or know somebody that is qualified to be a US citizen, definitely go ahead and apply to be a US citizen if you're so inclined, because a lot of people don't want to be a US citizen. But I always say do it because it's your sure protection, because you might have your green card for 20 years, you get into some issues that pushes you into deportation, and then after 20 years, you're going back home. So I always say get your citizenship for you and your children once you qualify. But we have an election year, and as you know, your vote is your voice, and you can only vote if you're a US citizen. So you're your voice for your family and friends who don't have legal status, because we know we need major changes, major reforms in regard to immigration. So definitely, if you think you qualify to be a US citizen, go ahead and apply. If you are very iffy about it, you can consult with an attorney to figure out if you qualify, what needs to be done to help you get to that point to be qualified. Or speaking attorney will tell you definitely you cannot submit an application because you would go into deportation. I've had issues where people say, but I know I've had criminal issues, but I renewed my green card and I had no issues. They said it. You have to understand that renewing your green card, becoming a citizen, is two separate things. So they don't do an intense background when you're renewing your green card. But they do when you're trying to become a citizen, because they're trying to ensure that you're not morally corrupt to be a US citizen, right? So they do a better and more thorough background check. So not because you got the green card renewed mean you're gonna get the citizenship. All right, so still speak to an attorney, consult with an attorney if you do think that whatever issues you had in the past might impact. Right, another thing that is important that a lot of people overlook, especially back in the day, I've seen a lot of issues with that, is that for younger adult males, you are required to register for the Selective Service once you get your green card. A lot of people don't do that, but you have to be aware that although it's a requirement, the Selective Service, it's not like back in the day where they're gonna do what they call it, a draft where they pick you all up and send you to war. That don't happen no more. But they do want people to, males at a particular age, I think I want to say 17 to 36. They want you all to register. I could be wrong with the age. I need to correct and get the next show. But you have to be ready and registered to vote. It's a requirement when you try to do your citizenship. They're gonna ask you if you registered for the Selective Service, and you have to provide proof that you did register. And if you didn't register, you have to find a valid reason as to why you did not register for the Selective Service. So if you have children who have their green card younger, ensure that they were registered for the Selective Service. It just has a mark when you're doing your green card. A lot of people don't do it. A lot of people think they're going to go to war. Now, back in the day, you're not going to go to war, but it's just a requirement that you have to meet in order to become a citizen. You don't want it to hinder you from actually becoming a citizen. All right? So that is one of the things that I've seen with other people where I'd have to do a background check. Plus, you have to explain why. In regards to background check, if you're not sure about what crime you have committed, I also recommend to do an FBI background check that pulls your record from wherever you were located in the United States. Because oftentimes people really don't know, especially if they committed crimes when they were younger. And no matter the crime, traffic, anything traffic related, I'm not talking about human trafficking, like regular traffic violations, you have to be aware of those, because oftentimes a multitude of those charges can go against you. All right, although they're minor. And you have to understand when immigration are looking at what to look at in regards to saying you're not fit, you're morally corrupt, they look under moral turpitude. The moral turpitude is basically whether you are fit. So they don't have to look at the one, say you committed a major felony. They could look at multiple felonies back to back out of different incidents and say, you know what, based on this pattern, we don't think you're fit to be a US citizen. And furthermore, they could look at it and say, all right, some of these charges could basically put you in deportation. And this is why I say always speak to an attorney if you're not sure. But if you're not sure about what offense you have committed or where you have lived, or you might have forgotten something, definitely do an FBI background check. It's not that costly. The last one I did a week ago, it was like $100 and something. It's not that costly. It's a good investment if you don't know what you have, crime you have committed. Because I've had people say to me, I only have one crime. And when I pull up their record, it's a lot that they committed when they were younger, and they were like, oh no, it's not that important. Yeah, it might be way out, but if it's over a period of time, consistency, and it shows, and they do look at what you've committed in the last 5 years of applying for your status, or if it's through marriage 3 years, they look at what crimes you have committed. So just be mindful of that and be aware of the charges that you might get. And as I say, if you're gonna get into any criminal issues and you're going through the immigration process, speak to an attorney that is versed on immigration before you do any plea agreement. Because you might do an agreement and you think, oh, it's just probation, or I just pay a fine, but it might impact you immigration-wise. All right? So speak to, if you have any criminal issue, if you know a family friend have a criminal issue, but they're in the immigration process or they have a green card, say to them, before you plead to anything, speak to the immigration attorney, let them work with your attorney to weigh your pros and cons and to see what charge is best for you. I always say, if it's not beneficial, fight the charges, whatever it may be, because you don't want to plead guilty to something that is going to impact the immigration rights. If they won't give you a good plea deal, I say fight it. Because sometimes it's better to fight it than end up into deportation. We end up paying a lot more money, and the possibility of you staying or going, like, is really up to a judge to decide. You don't have a jury in immigration court, but it's really up to the judge to decide. So you have to be aware of that and be conscious of that when you're going through the process. And as I always tell my clients, like, if you're getting your green card or going through the process, just stay out of trouble. Forget about your ego, just focus on the prize, because you don't want to end up being coming here trying to work hard to make a better life for yourself and end up being sent back home where you forego all opportunities. So what other major thing I want to talk about in regards to immigration, that is very important. If you have individuals that want to come here to attend school, for a better opportunity, definitely monitor the school that you want to attend and monitor when you need to submit applications to be approved and deadline for the school. Okay, I'm a little bit thirsty. So definitely monitor that to see what deadline the school has and work with the school to get everything in time so you're able to attend school the required time. Okay, I know we're finishing up and fall is coming and then you have summer, and get your grades in so that you're able to apply. If you are, I've spoken to a lot of people who their passport is expired and they don't know what to do. You don't have to travel. Oftentimes people say, oh, I have to travel to Miami, I have to travel to New York to go renew my passport, Jamaican passport. You don't have to. You could actually mail in the document. You go online and print out the information and complete the application. Make sure you complete the application thoroughly and correctly, because minor things might get it sent back and you don't want the delays. So make sure that you monitor everything. So ensure that you do the applications accurately and that you submit on time. The passport has pictures, make sure they're accurate. You don't have to leave the country. And just remember that you cannot mail a passport. All right, you can't say, I'm going to send it to Jamaica to my friend or whatever country you have for them to go do the paperwork for you. You cannot do that because it's a federal crime to send a document like that to the mail. It can be confiscated and then you'll have issues. All right, so don't send your passport to the mail, but do the application, send copies. And as soon as you see that the document is about to expire or it's expired, definitely go ahead and renew it. And when you travel also to the United States and you're doing your documentation, if you want to change status, just be mindful that they look at the information in regards to what passport you use when you're traveling. Oftentimes what they'll do, I've had issues where people say, oh, but I can't find my I-94 based on the passport information I put in because they renewed the passport. But if you traveled on your old passport or if the visa was in an expired passport, that is the number that they'll use on the I-94. So you have to be aware that you have to look at what information the I-94 will have and make sure your passport information is correct, your name is correct. Because on the I-94, they will use the name that's in your passport and on the documents. So be aware of that. All right. And keep copies of everything. Always keep a copy of your passport. You don't know if you're going to lose it. So if you have your passport, your green card, your citizenship, make copies and keep those copies because anything could happen and you could lose them. So be aware of that and keep them. Okay, for those individuals who are adjusting to status, they might be saying that, okay, they require us not to, whether we're a public charge How do I prove if I'm going to be a public charge? Public charge means whether you're going to be relying on the government for any form of assistance. Usually, if you're going to be a burden on the government, they're going to be like, we don't need you here. So you have to prove that you're not going to be a burden. Your family can provide for you, or you're able to provide for yourself in the event of you getting an approval. So you have to monitor how you look about doing these applications. You have to make sure you meet your family, whoever's going to petition for you, meet the income requirement. If they don't meet the income requirement, you could definitely get somebody to co-sponsor the application to show that they'll assist in the event the other party falls short. So you have to look at the amount of people you're going to claim on your taxes and also what is required. All right. So that's very important. And they look at what skills you have, which you will have to list and talk about. And so that's very important. A lot of people are having issues with that, whether they got the public charge rule. You fall under that category regardless if you're being petitioned for by a family member. The only time you don't come under that category is if you're getting government, like asylum, refugee, or VAWA, victim of abuse. You want to fall under that category, but everybody is presumed to fall under that public charge rule. You have to prove that you don't fall under it by showing that you have met the requirements. All right. So I know the show is usually like 15 minutes, but I see I'm going over. And I want to thank those for tuning in. Please, okay, Juliet has a question. Thanks for saving us, Juliet, with your question. The naturalization certificate said it should not be copied. Did that change years ago? Yeah, you have to copy, because even if you're going to petition for someone, you have to send a copy. You cannot send the original document. So you can copy it, but don't laminate it. Because every time they require a copy, because you don't want to lose your actual document, naturalization. All right. And for those with your green card, I always say, make a copy of your green card and walk with it. Whatever you do, walk with a copy of it, because you don't want to be have any issues and can't prove that you are actually who you are. So make copies of everything and keep those copies. All right. Thanks for everyone for joining. You're welcome, Juliet. Thank you. Share and tell your family and friends. So definitely tell your family and friends to tune in at 3 o'clock to watch Immigration Time. As I said, if you have questions, you could send me an email at admin@fangerlawfirm.com, or you could follow my page at the Fanger Law Firm on all social media and send me your questions and I'll answer them. All right. You're welcome. Thank you, Julia, for sharing, and thank you for always joining. For all the other wonderful individuals, thank you for joining. And I'll see you again next week at 3 p.m. And I hope you bring all your questions so I could answer. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.